So, if you guys don't know, like a couple of weeks ago when Mercedes Russell, was it last week when Mercedes Russell signed for the Indiana Fever? So, when she signed for the Fever, um, like we've got we had a kind of an insight into why she was signed. So, the Indiana Fever literally they sign people they're friends with. It's a reason why the Indiana Fever, it might be like a now or never. It might be a now or never for the Indiana Fever to win because they are incompetent at roster building. Like, they don't scout. They literally don't. Like, they had one scout last year who went to a South Carolina practice and they came out of it saying their practices are pro practices. If we draft a player from here, they'll be able to help us at practice. Like, that is essentially like that's part of the reason why they drafted Raven Johnson. Because they're like that out of tune with all of this stuff. But it's one of those things where the Indiana Fever now it's an interesting one because you can see here WNBA champion Gary Kloppenberg assisting Indiana Fever amid temporary staff changes. Sorry, it won't let me narrow this Google Chrome, so I will try to bring this over. Champions returned to WNBA and Roman sidelines Indiana. Gary Kloppenberg, the head coach of the 2020 title winning Storm, Fisher rejoined the Fever as a coaching advisor in early July. Team knew a shakeup was coming. Assistant coach Kareem Christmas Kelly was preparing for the birth of her second child and thus approaching maternity leave. They needed someone else to step in. That's why Kloppenberg was called in for support. So the Indiana Fever have brought in a championship winning coach as basically a coaching consultant, is it? A coaching advisor, which is an interesting one. Like, start of July was when this happened. And look, if we're being real, where were the Indiana Fever at the start of July? Like, where were they at the start of July? Like, they weren't really in that, like, championship situation, were they? I don't really looking at them in that regard. Well, bringing in extra coaches, bringing in extra players. I mean, in fairness, if you're Stephanie White, the one thing I'll always give Stephanie White credit for is she doesn't have too much of an ego to delegate internally. She absolutely does not. That being said, again, like we can criticize a lot of stuff with Stephanie White, like externally, we can criticize a lot of the public stuff Stephanie White does, and look, I'm all for that. Like, I'm all for criticizing Stephanie White as much as you want for the stuff she does publicly. That being said, I do feel like privately, Stephanie White does seem like a someone who's willing to help in those scenarios. Somebody who's willing to give assistant coaches an ability to give the assistant coach an ability to coach, bringing in a championship coach when, look, if we're being real, if you lose Kareem or Christmas Kelly, some coach will just be like, it's fine. We've lost an assistant coach, we're fine. And not bringing in, again, a former champion. I was like, this is a big deal. First of all, like, he was apparently the reason why the team brought in Mercedes Russell. Like, I don't even think Mercedes Russell's that horrendous a signing. By the way, she's huge. Again, I sat courtside beside them warming up. She is huge. Like, Mercedes Russell is no question about it, like 6'6", and legit 6'6". Like, Caitlin Clark's probably 5'10 and a half, 5'11", but like, you've got Mercedes Russell, who is huge. I don't know exactly why they needed a slow giant, because it's not like Minnesota are bringing out Sierra McCowan in the rotation. It's not like Kalani Brown still out there for Phoenix. So, and Phoenix aren't good. So it's not like they're coming up against any giants. So there's no scenario where I think Mercedes Russell comes in. But obviously, look, um, he coached her and brought her in. But it is an interesting one to see, like, when you've got a championship winning coach in there. And a championship winning coach, I'm going to be real as well to say, like, when you won in the bubble, like, that's a different type of coaching. Winning in the bubbles, not that much about, like, it's really not that much about basketball X's and O's. It's about the locker room stuff. It's about getting everyone on the same page, keeping them focused while being in a bubble. So, like, that is a big thing. And look, that could help because coaching the Indiana Fever is as much about dealing with the outside noise and bullshit than it is about coaching basketball. But yeah, look, it's I think this all helps. I think this all really helps, and I think all around we've got a good enough coaching staff and somebody that has won a championship again can't be any harm as a head coach. Like, won a chip as a head coach and is now is now 73 years old, too old probably to be a head coach, who has also, like, in the WNBA has coached, was the Indiana Fever's assistant coach through Tamika Catchings, was the Indiana Fever's assistant coach for Stephanie White for a year, was the Storm's assistant coach when they won a championship in 2018, then won a championship with them in 2020. Then also, I didn't even realize he was the Indiana Fever's assistant coach when they won 5 games. I did not realize that. He was the Indiana Fever's coach when they won 5 games. So, I think that might be a negative one. But yeah, look, it is just an interesting situation all around with what's transpiring, and hopefully this is one of those good coaching hires. This is one of those good coaching hires because, I mean, Fever, you get a championship coach there, it can very much help. Can very, very much help.